Hello, and welcome to this presentation on relative pronouns. Let's get started. Relative pronouns introduce dependent clauses that add description and connect to the rest of a sentence. Relative pronouns refer to the person or noun being described. For example, the boy who was laughing hysterically in church is my nephew. Who is a relative pronoun, and everything after it is called the relative clause. Remember, clauses usually have a noun and a verb, but they do not form a complete sentence. So who was laughing hysterically in church is the relative clause because who is the relative pronoun. If you remove that relative clause, who was laughing hysterically in church, you still have a complete sentence. The boy is my nephew. But that sentence lacks detail that specifies who the boy is. So relative clauses and relative pronouns can add description to give you more clarity on the subject and what is happening in the situation that the sentence is describing. Here are some common relative pronouns: who, whom, whose, whoever, whomever, that, which, what, whatever, whichever. For example, the lady who spoke to me was the new receptionist. Who is a relative pronoun. The book, which is now out of print, is informative. Which is a relative pronoun. The lamp that Jim sold was a family heirloom. That is a relative pronoun. Sam knew what I wanted. What is a relative pronoun? So let's talk about some functions of relative pronouns. This is important because some people get confused on when to use who or that. So here are all of the relative pronouns that refer to people: who, whom, whose, whoever, whomever. And these are all of the relative pronouns that refer to things: that, which, whichever, what, whatever. When you say what, it's as if you're saying that which. Give her what she desires. Give her that which she desires. But instead of all of that, we just say what. Whatever means anything or everything. Give her whatever she wants in the shoe department. Whichever means any one out of a group. Give her whichever doll on that clearance shelf that she wants. So hopefully this will help you to make distinctions between these common relative pronouns and when to use them properly. Okay, let's move on. When to use who, that, or which. Who refers to human people. I like the lady who smells like roses. Who is the relative pronoun. Who smells like roses is the entire relative clause. That refers to objects in restrictive or defining clauses that do not require commas. And we're going to tell you what restrictive clauses are in just a moment. Example, the dress that I really love cost $27 on sale. That I really love is the relative clause because that is the relative pronoun. When to use which. Which refers to objects in non-restrictive or non-defining clauses that require commas. Which introduces non-essential information that can be removed from the sentence. This is what we mean. Sports drinks, which are intended to increase energy, can be dangerous. There's a comma after drinks and a comma after energy. That means that relative clause beginning with which are intended to increase energy is surrounded by commas. This is what you do when you use which. it must be surrounded by commas. If you take that relative clause out, which are intended to increase energy, you still have a complete sentence. Sports drinks can be dangerous. That means this sentence is non-restrictive. It has a non-restrictive relative clause because you can take it out and still have a complete sentence that makes sense. Here are examples of relative pronoun clauses. The lady who spoke to me was the new receptionist. Who spoke to me is the relative clause. The lady was the new receptionist. You can take that out and you still have a complete sentence. But in the second sentence, the lady was the new receptionist, you lack the detail that she spoke to you. Second example, the lamp that Jim sold was a family heirloom. That Jim sold is the relative clause. If you take it out, you still have a complete sentence. The lamp was a family heirloom, but you lose the detail that Jim sold it. So relative clauses can add more description to the sentence, and the relative pronoun links that clause to the rest of the sentence. Let's look at another example. The book, which is now out of print, is informative. The book is informative. You lose the detail that the book is out of print, and that's pretty important if you're looking for this book. Second example, Sam knew what I wanted. What I wanted is the relative clause because what is the relative pronoun. You have a complete sentence, Sam knew. You have a subject and a verb. Sam is a subject, which is a noun. Knew is a verb. But you lack detail without that relative clause. So as I mentioned before, let's talk about restrictive clauses, and they might be called defining clauses. These clauses add descriptive, important information that cannot be deleted from the sentence, or else the meaning of the sentence will change without the additional information. For example, here is the cat that scratched my baby. You have the relative pronoun that, so the clause is that scratched my baby. Without that clause, you only have here is the cat. Well, that's sort of open-ended and confusing. And what else? Here is the cat, and that's why you add that relative clause to give the detail that this is the cat that scratched my baby. Second example, I don't like people who speak negative words. The relative clause is who speak negative words because the relative pronoun is who. Without that clause, you have I don't like people. And that might be true for some, but you need that detail who speak negative words to make absolutely clear what the speaker or the writer means and not just leave it hanging at I don't like people, because that can be taken a number of erroneous ways. So always be clear. Now let's talk about non-restrictive clauses. Non-restrictive, also called non-defining clauses, add descriptive information that is not essential to the meaning of a sentence. The sentence still makes sense without the additional information. For example, Miss Green, who is about to retire, took 3 weeks of vacation. The relative clause is who is about to retire because it begins with the relative pronoun who. If you remove that relative clause, you still have Miss Green took 3 weeks of vacation. It still makes sense. You just lose the additional detail who is about to retire. And that detail just lets you know a little bit of why she can do this, because she's about to retire anyway. So that relative clause adds a bit of detail that adds clarity and insight. In summary, relative pronouns introduce dependent clauses that are called relative clauses. And remember, dependent clauses are not complete sentences. They cannot stand on their own as a complete sentence. Relative clauses add additional description. Relative clauses usually come after the noun or pronoun it describes. Okay, hopefully this presentation has been helpful to you. Make sure to visit our websites at arhampton.com or prowritingskills.com or www.easyedits.net for additional practice materials. Thank you so much and happy learning!